Well, it's that time of week again, and Tom's back, and we're going to talk about pork this week, which I'm really looking forward to because I absolutely love the stuff.
Yeah.
It's not too expensive, and there are so many different cuts, and the cut we're talking about today is something that I would use on a regular basis, and I know my mum does. So what have we got?
This, Justine, is a pork neck, an Otway pork neck. And I guess the important thing about pork is, you know, a lot of us have cooked pork before and it dries out. So the beauty about using the pork neck, or the top of the Scotch roast, is that it's got that beautiful marbling through it, so it stays nice and juicy and it renders out while it's cooking.
That's exactly why I love it, because it doesn't dry out at all.
It's a winner.
So how do we prepare a pork neck?
Sure. All right, well, what we're going to do is basically we're just going to tie it up.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple.
This is really good to learn because it's sometimes quite daunting, quite difficult tying roast.
Yeah, sure.
What do we do to start with?
Okay, look, it's pretty straightforward. And when you're tying something, you probably want to sort of look at maybe spacing it every sort of inch or so.
Okay.
And a good way to do it as well, with something like this, start from the middle and work your way out, so it doesn't, you don't get that big bulge at the end. You know, if you start on one end, you sort of get this huge wedge.
That happens to me sometimes.
So, look, it's pretty straightforward. You basically just want to bring the twine around.
And the thing is, when you're tying, we don't do this just for it to look quite pretty. The reason we do this is so we keep all the moisture in, all the juiciness, all the goodness in, isn't it?
Yeah, it sort of locks it all in. And it helps it keeps its shape as well. So I guess when you're serving it up, you get a nice sort of presentable shape, you know. It helps with the aesthetics. And I just like to put a little extra tie on there.
To make sure it's...
Keep it secure.
Yep, keep it secure.
Nothing worse than going to all the effort of tying it up and then it sort of lets go right when you don't need it to, you know.
The main aim is just to keep it as a circle, so all the marbling and all the layers aren't going out like that, because then it will dry out. We just want it to be nice and condensed, so it's going to taste...
Keeps it nice and tight. Yeah, absolutely. Keep running through here.
I'm going to do a dish, something that's very close to my heart. My mum would do this once a week at least, and just the smell of it just floods the house and just really reminds me of my childhood. We're going to do it with a beautiful caramelised onion and pork reduction. And it's one of those dishes where it's a pot roast and you just put it in, cook it, and forget about it. You don't have to touch it the whole time. You know it's going to cook well. And on top of it, the pork's going to be so tender, so juicy, it won't dry out, which is, you know, a common myth with pork. It can always be dry when you cook it for a long time. So I'm going to start heating that up.
On the heat. And look, it's also important to note that with the Otway pork, it's bred-free range. So I guess what that means is because the animals are spending a lot of their days living outside, it really gets the muscles going, keeps the juices and the flavour into the muscle as well. And
it's a happy pig.
It's a very happy pig. They live very well, and that's really important. So that's another good reason to be using this pork.
I'm just going to get some olive oil. And this is great. I mean, when we have leftovers of this, it even tastes better the next day on a sandwich, a roast pork sandwich. And again, it's really tender, it's moist, it's not dry.
Can't beat it.
Best sandwich ever.
Put a little bit of chutney on there or something like that.
So is that ready for me, boss?
I think so. We'll just sort of spread those out a bit. As I said, you want to keep them probably around about an inch.
So you just saw then how easy it is to tie a piece of pork, and that's going to keep it nice and tight. Salt and pepper. Do you want to put some salt on that? I'll get some pepper.
Apply it liberally, and I think...
Lots of salt. Yeah, I like my salt.
Salt is your friend with pork.
Salt, pork, and all over, so I'm just going to roll that around. And I'm going to get in there with pepper. Be generous with the pepper.
And do you sort of want to rub that in, or...?
No, actually. I just, you know, it's going to stick to it. So a bit of pepper on each side.
Beautiful.
Really hot pan because we're going to seal the meat off. So get all those juices staying in there. OK, and in we go.
Have a listen to that.
You hear that? OK, so I'm going to wait till that gets golden brown on that side. And then I'm going to turn it over and get it golden brown on each side before I go into the next stage, which is caramelising the onions. So that's golden brown on each side, nicely sealed. All I do now is add my onions. And I've got about 2 onions here, 3 onions, and this is going to be the base of our sauce. We don't even have to take the meat out. Put the onions around. Because the pan's so hot, they're going to be nice and caramelised quite fast.
And then you're sort of using the juices, the pan juices, to caramelise it down.
The oil underneath it's just going to make them nice and golden brown. And that's going to cook for another 5 minutes. The aim is, if you want a really golden brown sauce, you've got to make sure the onions are caramelised. Okay, so be patient with this one too.
You've got to love a one-pot dish, really, don't you?
I mean, just smell just onions and pork, and just it caramelising. Just reminds me of my mum.
Tell you what, that smells like a bit of a sausage sizzle.
It does, doesn't it? It was caramelised onions, and they're just about right, actually.
Beautiful. And
now it's as simple as putting a sprig of thyme. That's my twist, not my mother's. She wouldn't be happy with that.
I'll get you in trouble.
Oh, it's all right. It's my dish now. And I'm going to put some port in.
Right.
I've chosen to use port instead of red wine because it's got that real sweet flavour to it. Yep. And with the onions, it's just a match made in heaven.
Do you have to cook the alcohol off or anything?
Yeah, so you can see it's bubbling. It's really hot in there, so all the alcohol is going to burn off straight away. Sure. And then all I do is get a little bit of stock just to help the sauce start, because I think there's going to be a lot of moisture that's coming out of the pork anyway.
It's got that marble through it.
Exactly, so that's going to make the sauce too. So we just want, like, maybe 2 tablespoons.
That Otway pork was just over 1 kilo.
Yep.
So how long do you think that should
I'm going to cook that for about 45 minutes. Yep. Yeah, so lid on. Let's forget about it. We probably have a glass of wine now.
Sounds
got a bit of time. All right.
Let's go.
Okay, that is ready, I think. Look at that. That sauce is nice and thick, and that meat is cooked. And you know it's cooked if you just give it a bit of a touch and it bounces back and it's nice and firm.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, it just sort of springs back, doesn't it? It's beautiful.
I'm going to get you to carve that. And I'd usually rest that for about 15, 20 minutes. Just, I mean, why do we rest our meat?
Look, it's really important to rest, and generally down at the shop I'll say to people, try and rest it as long as you cook it, which, if it's practical.
Yeah.
The important thing, I guess, is you've got to remember the meat is a muscle, so what you're actually doing is when you're resting, it's actually relaxing the meat, which actually brings all the juices back inside. Okay. So, very important.
Usually if you cut it straight away, the juices just run and it's going to be a dry piece of meat. You just want to retain the moisture as much as possible.
Yep, and also for something of this shape, it's really important to rest it to help it sort of keep its shape, so it looks sort of aesthetically pleasing. Yeah.
So this pot roast, you can see, it's just going to be so tender. I could actually just pull pieces apart if I wanted to. But what I'll get you to do is just cut some nice, not too thin, but not too thick, because it is, again, it's just like a roast. Look at that.
I'll tell you what, that was like a hot knife through butter.
And that's just like the moisture in that. You can see it's nice and it's wet, so you know it's ready.
And that's that marbling that we spoke about earlier. That just helps to sort of render out and keep it nice and juicy.
Yum. And so this sauce, you can see that it's nice and thick, it's glossy. It's that beautiful brown colour because of the port, but also because we caramelised those onions to start with, which was really important. And while that was cooking the last 5-10 minutes, I just quickly blanched some asparagus.
Yep.
And I've got some beans here. I just think it's nice, just a nice little side to go with it. Again, it's all about the pork and this beautiful juice. So I'm going to put a couple of pieces on.
I'll let you do the honours,
lovely,
Justine.
Tender pieces. Really, really nice dish.
You have spoken very highly about your mum's recipe, so comes highly regarded. It's nice, sort of clean, fresh greens.
And load up on the sauce.
Beautiful. Oh, it smells so good.
Those onions, it's kind of just sweet. Yeah.
You could almost bathe in that, really. It's don't try that at home. That is beautiful. All right.
That's my mum's pork, and I think you should be very proud of that. And I want you to have a go. Tell me what you think.
All right, let's do it. Get some of those juices.
Tom, you forgot the onions.
I know, sorry. I couldn't help myself. It was Otway pork. I just had to get in and give it a shot. Tell you what, the onions make it as well, you're right. Yeah. The sweetness, absolutely beautiful.